Many people experience financial difficulties due to deep seated emotional feelings about money. These feelings often drive bad money decisions that keep them from achieving financial freedom. To identify these emotional money beliefs and help people to get past them, I talked with certified financial planner Shannon Ryan to discuss solutions to this problem. My guest today is Shannon Ryan, a certified financial planner with over 30 years of experience guiding individuals and families through the emotional side of money. Known for her relatable insights and warm, clear style, Shannon combines deep financial knowledge with a heart centered approach to help people move from money stress to empowerment. She's the author of the book Your Money Has Feelings and a seasoned media guest, having appeared on CNBC, Good Morning America, and TEDx. Shannon's work focuses on uncovering the beliefs and wounds that silently shape our financial behavior and showing people how to rewrite them. Whether she's advising clients or speaking to audiences, Shannon helps others understand why they do what they do with money and how to build lasting confidence rooted in clarity, not shame. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Hello, Steve. Thank you for having me.
So I said before we hit record that it's an interesting uh, and catchy title to your book. It's always good to have a catchy title. You know, Your Money Has Feelings,
Mhm.
and we'll get into that a little bit. Uh, but yeah, it's people need to think about how they think about money
Mhm.
and realize that a lot of times they think about it emotionally rather than logically or practically.
Mhm.
So I said there are a lot of emotions and feelings when it comes to money, and that can affect your mindset, create financial stress, and
Mhm.
keep you from success. So I'm guessing that's where your whole money as feelings comes in. So let's start with mindset. What money beliefs do you believe hold people back, and how do you change them?
So I chose the title of the book, Your Money Has Feelings, and money doesn't have feelings. It is it's paper. We have feelings about money and we have reactions with our money. And the book itself is really 30 years of experience of not just writing or reporting or researching people's emotions around money. It's about actually living it with real people every single day. And what I learned was money is easy. People are tougher because people have experiences. We all grew up with experiences around money, and we had influences, whether it be our parents or an adopted family or whatever our childhood experience was. And that experience lent itself to how we react and interact with money. And it carries whether we're aware of it or not.
Mhm. So what kind of money beliefs are holding people back? These beliefs about money, these emotions.
So the big ones that we see are shame,
Hmm.
are holding people back because they don't feel that they have enough information or they are ashamed of some of their behaviors around money historically. Fear of making the wrong decision or not having the right information. We also see people habits holding them back, meaning that they've formed a set of habits that continue to create an outcome that is not desirable for them with their money. There's a whole list, Steve, of things that hold people back, but those are shame and fear and habits are really some of the primary ones.
Hmm. Well, let's walk through them. Let's talk about shame first, since that you listed that one first. You
Yes.
know, how do we change that? How do we get people to not feel ashamed? I guess is the
So
question.
shame is a tough one. Shame comes in a lot of different forms, but shame typically has come to us through somebody else's should. So let me give you an example. If you grew up with parents that fought about money, and you had a mother that would bring home some purchase and a father that would say, well, why did you purchase that? We don't have enough money. And why are you doing that? And there was a lot of shame in the household or power around money. Sometimes we'll carry that with us. And then if we make a mistake around money or we make a purchase that we don't think we deserve or we should have made, then we carry shame.
Mhm. Well, I see that a lot with my bankruptcy practice. People
I
come to
bet.
me, and there's a lot of shame with a lot of people, and because And one woman in particular, I spent quite a bit of time talking her down. She said, I'm better than this. I'm usually good with money. I don't know how this happened. And she was ashamed. I said, look, and her debt load was sort of on the low end
Yeah.
of what I've seen. And I said, look, I don't know whether it's going to make you feel any better, but you've got $35,000 in debt. I've seen it over 100,000 in
Yeah.
credit card debt. So, a lot of times it happens with stuff beyond your control. And trying
Well,
to, and
and
yeah.
yeah, think about so one of my clients had a Madoff type of experience
Oh.
where he and his wife, he was a fairly famous actor and singer, and he had a name that was recognized.
Mhm.
And he and his wife had supported a bunch of charities and encouraged charities, including and utilized their own money as well to give to somebody for investment.
Mhm.
And the man took off with all of the money. So when we sat down, he and his wife, although they were the victims of this scammer, they were so filled with shame. And I am seeing the shame around this type of victimization, especially with AI, and how often we're seeing some of this victimization around money happening, where people are getting calls and told to put money on an Apple card, and then, and they feel so awful that they fell for it and they
Mhm.
don't tell anybody. And so shame can actually put us in a very vulnerable situation for fraud.
Mhm. And I told people too, a lot of times, and this particular person, this particular client, I said, your feeling of shame actually shows you're a good person.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people, they're in bad, this, that happened, they overspent, this, that, and the other thing. And some of them are just out and out proud of it. They're not, they don't feel that shame. They don't feel that there's anything wrong with it, or that it's a problem. And at least that shame means you're a good person. You recognize that that's a problem. Because if you don't recognize the problem, there's no way for you to fix it. The people that aren't ashamed of it are going to do it again.
Especially
Maybe
in
the people that are ashamed of it won't and can learn from it, right?
I agree, especially in bankruptcy with what you're seeing, because people start to slip a little bit, and that shame prevents them from seeking somebody out like you before they get too far gone. So it sounds like she came to you when she wasn't as far gone as others and had some shame and felt bad about what she had done and wanted to correct it. And but unfortunately, people go down that slippery slope. They don't seek somebody like yourself out soon enough, and then it gets to be a really big problem.
Well, yeah, this woman, it throughout the process, she was just shaking her head, and it was in a conversation I had with her after we had met with her trustee, after we had filed the bankruptcy, but she had been feeling it all along. But yes, it's you can't solve the problem if you don't know there is one,
Yep.
I guess the good thing about the shame and shame unfortunately also delays the inevitable. They put off coming to see me.
Mhm.
They don't come to see me because they're feeling that shame. They put off going to see a bankruptcy attorney because they're ashamed to have to admit to someone that they're in this situation.
I completely agree.
Hmm. All right, so that's shame. And I guess the way to address it is to learn from it, to understand better how it happened,
Yep.
and maybe get some context to realize that, as I said to this one woman, your debt isn't as bad as some others I've seen. You need to see it in context that there are a lot of other people that uh, are in your situation, so you're
Mhm.
not alone, and they don't feel like they're the odd one out necessarily, and the person that should feel ashamed of it.
Well, and it's shame in the situation that you talked about. It's shame in the victimization situation that I talked about. And really the root of all of it is first to recognize where the hesitancy to get some help or to ask the question. If my clients are those that have been scammed, that have shame around, giving money to a scammer,
Mhm.
had asked the next question and felt empowered to push back a little bit, to seek to understand. They may not have had that scam that happened that left them with the shame. So it's identifying that hesitancy or that shame that we have and
Mhm.
then making, a different decision to seek out an attorney, to seek out help when you think that something's just too good to be true here. And it's really important.
Absolutely. All right, so we've dealt with shame. What about fear? How is that? How do we deal with fear? I guess fear about the future, fear about. I mean, how does the fear manifest itself?
Oh my gosh, Steve. I don't. I'm at that generation that doesn't have any tattoos, but if I was going to put a tattoo in my body, it would say Nole Timera and would be not afraid. Fear is one of the toughest emotions that we deal with in money. We're fearful that we don't know enough. We're fearful to invest in the stock market and then, divest it all and we fall behind. We're fearful to use certain institutions because we think that somebody is not being honest with us. So, or to seek out advice. We're fearful that we've made bad decisions, and so we don't want to tell anybody until we get it turned around, and then we never get it turned around on our own. So, fear is truly the one emotion that I see that causes people to fall short from their goals. Many people have enough money that flows through their hands, but that fear prevents them from making decisions to actually create wealth from that money.
Mhm. Absolutely. My wife had some relatives, an older couple. They were so afraid of the stock market that they wouldn't do anything other than put their money in CDs.
Yep.
And by the time they retired, you can imagine what happened. They didn't have enough, and they really struggled. And maybe and it's fear of the unknown. Wouldn't you say to a great extent they don't
Yeah.
understand a lot of what's going on with the stock market and investing and things like that?
Mhm.
They don't realize that there is a continuum of risk.
Correct.
So maybe one approach to addressing this fear, well, is education. Is telling them this is what's out there, this is how it all works, but
Yep.
also that continuum of risk so that there are many ways in which they can invest their money and save that has some risk, but that's within their risk tolerance and certainly better than just put it in CDs, right?
So it's interesting because in finance, we've got traditional finance, which
Mm-hmm.
is, it says that money is logical.
Mm-hmm.
That once you get the information, Google it, watch a TEDx, do whatever you need to learn about what the investment vehicles are, and then you can invest and you're going to be fine. Well, I understand that there is so much information out there that everyone should be able to find it, but why do 70% of people still report financial illiteracy or they're fearful of investing? And it's because the behavioral side, it's that fear that we carry with us. So even if they seek the knowledge, it's getting over that fear to actually invest. And that's what you just said. It's the unknown. We want a guarantee. If I had a dollar for every time somebody said, Shannon, I want to invest, but I only want the market to go straight up. So it's not understanding your emotions behind that traditional decision. So when we take traditional knowledge and then we blend it with an understanding the emotional side
Mm-hmm.
and get on that roller coaster anyways, but strap in with the right risk tolerance and the best advice that we can find, that we can actually find some financial freedom that is even greater than we could imagine by other than staying, if we didn't stay in CDs the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And people, yes, the stock market is risky. It's inherently risky, but really your risk, I guess, depends on how long it'll be before you'll need the money. So if you're
Yeah.
investing in your 20s, then although there's risk to the stock market, the risk is much lower because you have time to recover from it.
Hmm.
The stock, the market may go down, but it always goes back up again, and usually fairly soon after a drop,
Hmm.
other than the Great Depression, Great Recession, which are outliers. But understanding that, hey, keep putting money in the market. If the market goes down, that means stocks are on sale,
Yeah.
and you actually have an opportunity to do even better when you're investing in the long run. If you're in your 20s or
It's
even 30s.
emotionally really hard to do. And I'd even
Yeah.
submit to you that it's not just your 20s, because as we age, I help people retire every day.
Mhm.
And then you've got to live off that money in retirement. And if you're retiring at 60, 65, there's a great possibility today that you're going to live to 85, 90, 95 years of age. So you have a long time in front of you. And if you think about what inflation does to our purchasing power, that even if you're retiring today, often people will say, well, I need to get out of all risk investments. And I always have to laugh. When you say the market, there isn't one market. You've got large companies and small companies, international companies. So there's a lot of different sectors and places to invest, but the broad stock market allows you to take different levels of risk, but that risk is necessary to keep up with inflation. So think about it this way, is the fear of the stock market is so broad. Once we get traditional education around what type of risk, and you can identify what your fears are, that's when people can generally move forward. So when people come to my office, often they'll say, "Oh my gosh, Shannon, I am not risky. I'm not getting in the market." And I say, if I can prove to you that it's just as risky not to invest on your future, can we talk? And so they're like, "What are you talking about?" So again, it's just identifying where the fear is coming from, helping people understand what investment really is to overcome that fear. It's not easy. Can't say to somebody, just stop being fearful. I mean, it's a powerful emotion.
Yeah. Okay. So that's fear.
Mhm.
And the third one is habits. I know that I've talked in other episodes of the podcast on good money habits and bad money habits and how you can pick up bad or good ones from your parents and how they handled money.
Yep.
So, what are some of the bad habits and how do we get out of them into good habits?
So I'm going to approach this a little different than I think a lot of people would. I think a lot of people would say that a good habit is that you're always saving money and that a good habit is that you don't spend everything you have coming in. And we've got a lot of rules of thumb. I like to come at it from a different perspective. A good habit aligns with your values, meaning what do you want the most with your money? What is your money for? And we all have different things that we want. Some people say a good habit is to save for a home and to get your first house. And once you're in your first house, I don't know, is owning home ownership something that's important to you, or do you have other goals? Travel, education, retiring early that is more important than home ownership, and you happy to rent to be able to have some of these other items. And you may not have to make that choice, but the key to what I'm saying is that you need to look at what you want for yourself financially, not what society tells you, your parents, your friends, what you want. And then you need to align your resources with that and then create habits, small habits every day that get you closer to those goals. And that may be saving, paying off debt, buying a home, saving for your kids' education, getting ready for retirement. But it may not be. Other people shouldn't be making that decision of what that alignment is for you.
Mhm. So, what are some of the you talk about? And that's right, and I've talked with other guests on this that if your money and your investing and everything has to be in line with your beliefs and values,
Yep.
because you're more likely to stick to it
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing it for something you really want.
Yep.
So that's the formation of a positive habit, but there are a lot of habits that hold people back.
Yep.
And what are some of those habits and how they can break them?
So the biggest habit, and I know Steve, you see this all the time too in your practice, is the biggest habit that I see hold people back is not understanding their resources, not fully understanding what is flowing through their hands on a
Mm,
monthly and an annual basis, and the decisions they're making consciously and often unconsciously around that money. So sometimes I'll sit down with somebody that'll say, and a bad habit is a negative talk track too. I don't have enough. I never will. I'll never get to do this. I'll never get to do that. And then we start to dig into their finances and you realize, huh, they do have it. They're not accounting for what's flowing through their hands. So they're not making a conscious decision and they're giving their power away to make a better decision to get what they want. So the habit of not really understanding your resources. And I'm not using the word budget because people hate the word budget. I mean, budget means restrictive. I can't do what I want to do. So, really, what I'm saying is understanding your resources, your assets, meaning what resources or money you have, your asset of income, what's flowing in to align with what you most desire. But to do that, you kind of need to know what's coming and going out and what level of debts you have and what you need to service. And it's always surprising to me, and I know that you run into this too, Steve, because you work in bankruptcy, how often people want a better life. They want something for themselves financially, but they're not willing to look at the details because it's too painful. It's like getting on a scale. I don't want to think about how much I weigh. I just want to weigh less, but I don't want to get on a scale. And it's the same thing with money.
Mhm. Well, certainly, and I've talked to other guests that have sort of shy away from the word budget because people can sometimes just obsess about it and say,
Yeah.
no, not in the budget. We can't spend the money for it, things
Yeah.
like that. But I think that if you have you can have a grip on your money, but maybe that grip is a little too tight. You do have to have a handle on it. You do have to have a grip on it to make sure that you're spending within your means. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean you have to obsess about every single dollar. And one of the
Yeah.
bad habits that I found out about from talking to an earlier guest was something he called lifestyle creep,
Mm.
and where you start out in the world and you got your first job and you're making money and you created your budget and you're living within your means, and then you get a raise, you get a promotion, you get a better job, your income increases, but you tend to your expenses tend to increase along with it. And say, well, I'm making more money. I can afford a better car. I could
Yeah.
afford, to do this or a nicer vacation or things like that. So that as your income grows, so do your expenses. And you don't think, hey, wait a minute, I have other opportunities too, opportunities to save and invest and things like that, so that your expenses don't continue to expand with your income and you end up treading water.
Well, and that's my point because as your income goes up and the money flows through your hands, you need to be making a decision for the alignment because if there's more income, you have a greater ability to save for a kid's education or retirement or other things that may be important to you. What happens if we're not aware of it? Then yes, it's easy to have income creep because or expense creep because there's more money. If I have it in my checking account, I can use the money. The other mistake that I see that actually lands people with you in bankruptcy is that when people start to accumulate debt, that they feel like every dollar, this discretionary, meaning that leftover money, needs to go to pay the debt. And the biggest mistake I see is not people not having a cash reserve, meaning taking those dollars and paying down the most expensive debt first and getting through that. But you need to build a cash reserve at the same time. So that habit, which I think people feel like that's a great habit, I'm paying my debt down. But there's going to come a day where the car is going to need new tires, the refrigerator is going to break, or you're just going to be dog tired from working. You're going to be like, I deserve this. And everything's going to go to heck in a handbag, and you're going to keep that debt rolling because you didn't have a place to go to get that money to take the trip or to fix the car. You're back on credit card, and then you just give up, and it snowballs. And so that's another habit that I wish I saw people handling a little bit different. I'm sure you feel the same way because then they end up with you, Steve,
Mhm.
trying
Yeah.
to go into bankruptcy court.
Or they lose track, like I said, the um, values and everything else that they have that the money has to align with. If they lose track of that end up engaging in retail therapy and
Yep.
getting that short term dopamine hit from buying something, a new iPhone or
Yep.
whatever it is, that they feel good about for a while, but then that goes away, but the bill doesn't. So that could be a difficult habit to break.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do, I think it's tough now. I mean, with social media is showing us, and people aren't posting their tough days, they're not posting their budgeting days and saying no to something. They're just posting when they said yes. They're saying, look at this fabulous vacation, or I just bought this awesome car, I just got the newest iPhone yet again, as you just gave as an example. And
Hmm.
what they're not showing is the rigor that goes into making those decisions if they are putting any rigor into it. And so we feel like, well, if they've got it, I should have it. So comparison, social media has is just heightened that need for the dopamine hit more often. And I think it has created some real issues. In addition to, and you cited it earlier, we've got an entire generation, the millennial generation now, that are in their go-go years of working. They're in their 40s now, and they aren't invested as aggressively as they should be because they came of age during 2008 and 2009, and they're terrified. So there's a lot going on.
Absolutely. Well, before I go on to the next question, I want to circle back to shame for a moment because I know that um, you've talked about how even smart, successful people can still struggle with money shame.
Yes.
It's not just the average person. You have someone, a celebrity, a very famous person, whatever, they're still feeling that shame as well, right?
Yes. So money shame, one of the areas that money shame comes in is around, I think, family experience, community experiences. I've seen people that have become very financially successful, but they have shame around the utilization, spending the money, having the money. And so shame comes in a lot of forms.
Hmm.
And so they don't use their money in alignment because they feel like they shouldn't spend it this way. And again, the shoulds come in a lot, and that is typically from our family of origin, the community we grew up in. I had a firefighter once that his father was really disappointed that he had been a firefighter and not a businessman. And he was a successful firefighter, had plenty of money, had everything he wanted. And when his dad died, he inherited several million dollars, and he felt shame that he had this much more money than everyone else in the firehouse, and he just wanted nothing to do with it. Shannon, can I just give it all away?
Hmm.
And when we sat down, I said, well, before we do that, let's talk about what's most important to you. Where are your values? And he had several charities and things that he wanted to do and kids he wanted to support for education. So we took that gift and made it something that was incredibly valuable to him, that really filled him up with gratitude for the money, and he was able to let go of some of the shame. To him, money was he was a failure because his dad said he never earned enough. So when he got his dad's money, there was shame around that money.
Hmm. I talked with a guest in a previous episode who talks about how people can handle inherited wealth. And that shame you describe is one of the things that I talked about with him. How do you
Yep.
deal with that? How do you deal with having all this money suddenly that you don't feel like you earned because somebody else gave it to you?
Yeah,
And that can create some shame.
it
But
can.
also, you see, smart people can still make bad emotional decisions. Successful people may be successful on the surface. I call, there's a difference between an income millionaire and an asset millionaire.
Yep.
That income millionaire is a millionaire only as long as they're making that money. If they're a celebrity, only as long as their movies are successful or their TV shows or whatever they are. And that if they're not creating more permanency with their money, then they have that sort of secret shame knowing that it looks good, but I don't really have anything.
Happens all the time. And here's the key to it. Money is primal.
Mhm.
Money is how we eat, we clothe, we house, but it's deeper than that. It's how we believe, and it's true, at times, society judges us. It's how we judge people in society. We don't write books about people that are broke. We write books about people that became multimillionaires. And when we say somebody is successful, I said, oh, Steve, you're so successful. People are going to assume that you're financially successful without examining the quality of your life. And because this drives this desire for us to be admired by others or put up on that pedestal, that often we'll spend income, as you just said, on things that make us look successful. And sometimes when you pull back the curtain, the assets are not there. It happens often. And then there's shame. I had it, it flowed through my hands, but I've got nothing to show for it. Why did I want to impress people? And it's because it's this primal desire to be admired.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, all right. So we've gone beyond those three pain points. Let's talk about uh, money confidence, financial confidence, and how do people achieve that financial confidence? They may not have a high net worth. They may not be successful yet. They may be early on in their journey. We talked about the fear factor that holds people back. How can people achieve that confidence, that financial confidence that, you know what, I'm going to take these risks, I'm going to put the money aside, and I'm going to be successful, even though I'm not successful yet. They haven't gotten that positive feedback yet.
Yeah. So, money confidence doesn't come necessarily with money. In fact, one of the things that I say in the book is the answer to money confidence is rarely more money. What it is how we handle our money brings money confidence. So, again, it's creating this awareness of what's coming in, what's going out, how we're building assets and why we're building those assets, meaning what is it for, what is the goal behind those assets, then how much risk we should take. And it's one of those things that in our society we run ticker tapes across screens of news reports and other things, and we make money so complicated that people shy away from it. Money confidence is understanding your situation, whatever it is, wherever you are at, and making conscious decisions to get yourself in alignment so you achieve your financial goals. No one else's. So when you get on that path, and sometimes it takes Steve working with somebody like you, going through a bankruptcy, getting yourself together, and then getting yourself relaunched, you can be very confident, even during that process, that you're doing the right thing. So it doesn't necessarily mean more money. It means understanding what you want for yourself and then utilizing your resources to get there. There are people, Steve, in this world that don't have enough money and are in such deep poverty. They don't have any money to make decisions around,
Hmm.
but the rest of us do. And we let go of those decisions by not paying attention to it. And we lose our money confidence because then we're ashamed
Mhm.
and that we haven't done anything and we've let it throw through our hands. And shame is quiet. We don't say anything because
Mhm.
we feel foolish.
All right. Well, the last question I want to get into, you talk about emotional money wounds
Yes.
and how they can secretly drive financial decisions.
Yeah.
What are these emotional money wounds? How do they drive decisions, and how do we prevent them from driving them in the wrong direction?
Yeah. So when I talk about an emotional wound, I did a TEDx talk a couple of years ago, and I talked about financial scar tissue, which is a result of financial wounds. They come in a lot of forms. You can remember your parents fighting over money. It could be losing a job. It could be being hungry. It could be not having the cool clothes or shoes to fit in school. Anything that happened that left a wound, something that hurts you financially. You wish you could have taken a trip that you couldn't take. Um, Often we forget about those experiences, but they leave scar tissue, similar to a wound. If you get a flesh wound, you could have scar tissue, skin that gets a little bit more rough. When it gets hit, sometimes it's conscious, but most of the time it's unconscious. We will react to situations with money from that hurt place and not even know why we're doing it. We'll forget that our parents sat around the kitchen table arguing over money every single night. So when our spouse comes home and says that they want to do something with money, you're like, oh, no, no, we can't do that. And it creates a fight. So, and you may not even know why you're arguing or telling them that they can't do it. And it has to do with the emotion or the wound or scar tissue that we carry with us, often unconsciously.
Mhm. Even if it's something as simple as, you tried, there was a time a while back where you had a lot of these brokerage houses creating these consumer accounts where anybody can trade stocks, and
Yep.
you go in there and you trade some stocks, and you think you're doing your research, and as a result, you lose a lot of money, and that creates the kind of wound you're talking about,
Yes.
where it increases the fear. No, I tried that. I lost a lot of money. I don't want to try it again.
Yeah.
And that wound prevents them from investing the way they should be.
Yeah, I had, oh my gosh, I had some clients in the late 90s, back when the internet was taking off. And we're seeing a lot with AI right now. And some clients that came in, I talk about this in my new book, Your Money Has Feelings. This husband and wife came in and we were well-rounded, very diversified. They were getting close to retirement. It was 1997, 1998, if you remember that period of time, right before the big fall off with the tech stocks. Techs were new. It felt a lot like AI. It's very reminiscent of today. And I remember them coming in the office for a review meeting and they had gotten 37%. And they needed to get maybe 7 or 8% to get to retirement. They were 2 or 3 years away. And I remember sitting down being really excited for them. And he wasn't happy. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "My neighbor got almost 80% and you only got 37%." I said, "Well, I don't know what your neighbor's invested in, but I know we've got you well balanced. And this is a phenomenal return. We're even closer. You're not taking too much risk. I thought you'd be thrilled with it." He said, "No, I want you to put me all in tech stock. And I want Yahoo. And I want it for my entire portfolio." I know, look, you know what happens, Steve. And I said, "I'm sorry. None of this makes sense to me. I won't put it 100% in individual tech stocks right now. I can't watch you do it. I care too much about you." And he fired me, Steve. I was a young professional. I was so disappointed, but I just couldn't do it because I knew that I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Couple years later, 2001, I had gone from Washington, D.C. down to Dallas. I had taken over as one of the complex managers down there. And I get a call from this client. And I pick up the phone and I said, "Just tell me you didn't do it. That's all I want to know." He said, "Shannon, we fired you, put 100% of our retirement, 3 years before retirement in tech stock, lost 80%, and then pulled out, pulled out of the market in March of 2009 when it hit the bottom and never went back in." Devastating. Smart man, had plenty of money, 3 years from retirement. But this happens all the time. And it's because we want to be smart. We want to think we know something that no one else knows. We want to be that lottery winner. And the problem is that desire pulls us into things that can go south really fast. And it's happening right now with some of AI and some of the Coinbase investments and other things that absolutely have merit in small doses, not your entire portfolio. So, but we make those types of mistakes and then we never even approach the markets again and we live in shame and regret.
Ugh. So
Yeah.
you mentioned a couple times your book. Tell us about your book. If folks read it, what can they expect to get out of it?
So I wrote the book with 30 years of working with real people. A couple of stories I've told. I talk about my experiences, and really it opens up this difference between the behavioral side and the traditional side of finance. There's 100 books out, there's thousands of books out there telling you how to invest in stocks. This is really rooted in what we've been talking about today, meaning what is your emotional response to money and why is it holding you back potentially from being financially successful?
Mhm. And how can they get your book?
My website, Shannon-Ryan, Ryan, .com
Mhm.
is, I have a full splash page there and I'm everywhere books are sold.
Okay. And if folks want to reach out to you and say, hey, keep me from investing in Yahoo, even though I really want to,
Yeah.
uh, how can you how can you help me get over these fears and create some financial confidence? How do you help folks?
Yeah. Shannon-Ryan.com. And there's a link there. You can reach out to me from there. I do have a wealth practice
Mhm.
and I'm taking on a few clients, but more importantly, I have resources that can be used today and on that website.
So you offer financial planning services.
I do. I
Okay.
do.
All
Yes.
right. Well, great perspective
Yes.
uh, on the emotions of money, and I think it's something that people need to recognize. Hopefully, the listeners might see some of that in themselves and realize, hey, wait a minute, maybe there is a solution, maybe there is a way around a lot of these bad thoughts, these mindsets, and maybe help heal some of that financial scar tissue and make some good decisions about their money and get financial freedom. So thanks
Okay.
for coming on the show.
Steve, thank you for having me.
Mhm.